As I said to the young ones, we don't have many feasts about buildings. But it is worth noting its importance, right? It is the mother church. In fact, there's a sign over top that says, the mother and head church of the city and the world. It's the oldest Christian church on the planet. It's 1,700 years old. It was the first church built when Christianity was made legal, not when it was made official, right? But like when they finally said, okay, it's not illegal to be Christian. That's the first church built. And so it's all of our home. And then you hear in these three readings, to make that connection, again, as I said to the young folk, churches aren't just buildings, they're the people. And you begin to understand the importance of how that plays out. And you go back to Ezekiel, making that profound connection to the temple and the water that flows out of the temple. If you ever studied like philosophy all the way back to where it first sort of started, the first sort of philosopher was Anaximenes. And Anaximenes said, everything is water. That was his great insight and his contribution to that sort of first look at things from a metaphysical standpoint. Everything is water. And he's not wrong. And then I think it was Anaximander who came next and said, well, actually everything is fire. Everything is fire. And he went through this whole philosophy of why that's the case. And on it goes. But I do think that Anaximenes isn't wrong. That if you want food, you got to have water first, right? And so as that story goes on to say, as the water flows out of the temple, what follows because of that? Life and healing. Life and healing. And so we are the temple in this beautiful space, and us as individuals, even if we were cursing each other coming in here as the way we drove, we're here together. And I want to point out something to you you maybe haven't noticed. Statue over here. Sorry. My mic is awfully windy when I move. If you haven't noticed this statue very much, I want a miniature of this in my house, and I want to point it right out a window just like this one is doing. Does it work in the daylight? It worked really well at night last night. Because, right, the 5 o'clock Mass, we started with a little daylight, and by communion it was like midnight. It was just midnight in here. What I love about this statue is he's pushing those windows open, right? That's his great line to us. Open the windows, he said before the Second Vatican Council. But he's not looking out. He's looking back at us with that impish grin. If you haven't come close, have a look. Get closer, see it. To me, that's mischievous was Pope John the 23rd. And to me, he's like, you coming with me? Are you ready to do this? Are you ready to be the water that's flowing out of the temple? That's going to bring life and healing? Because churches aren't about polished marble. They're about practicing mercy. This is beautiful marble, and if I have the story right, the lighter marble is actually from around here. I think as Father Herb explained it to me. If I'm wrong, don't tell me. Let the story go. Something up here is local quarry. That's how the story was told to me. That's beautiful. There are so many cool things in our worship space to know. The whole story of how Timothy Schmaltz agreed to do all of the pieces. So many amazing stories, and they do strengthen my faith, and they do make my sense of worship here a little deeper. As I said, I go back to that one, because there's our charge. There's our mission. There's our call. And again, it's not Pope John the 23rd that was the first to say, go out and do it. But particularly as our patron to say, yeah. Because the first to say it, of course, is Jesus Christ himself. As he said, I am the temple in the gospel. And so he's calling us to do something profound. As I said, the marble is nice. It's beautiful. I remember Father Herb talking about, sometimes he'll say, there's not enough sacred art in this space. And for that group to say, we intentionally didn't want a lot of things in here because we didn't want people distracted from the people. We wanted people to look and see each other and say, we are the body of Christ. We will receive the body of Christ. And then, following our patron, we're going to take it out of here. We're going to be that life-giving and healing water. As John the 23rd himself said, people prefer the medicine of mercy to the weapons of severity. And that's the balm that we can bring, first to each other, and then to take it out. It's that simple. And there it is in the Eucharist. Him breaking his body, pouring out his blood, not because we're worthy of it, because he loves us. He loved each and every one of us into existence. And so then, from that space, as we look at all that's going on in our world, all that's unfair, all that feels super dark, that we then are pouring it out of ourselves. Whenever I give like a teacher workshop, there's a Protestant minister, and his name escapes me right now, but he used to say this in general, and I always use it with teachers, which is to say, if you want your students to bleed, like I have a passion for what you're talking about, you as a teacher have to hemorrhage. And I was just sharing this story with 7th graders this week, that I had a math teacher in 9th grade who had a passion for math that befuddled me as someone who didn't particularly care for math, at least once they stopped using numbers. That's when I was like, this is just fiction. I don't even know what's going on. But in 9th grade algebra, his passion, he was hemorrhaging, and it made me want to bleed. I really appreciated it. He's literally the reason one of my other friends became a math teacher, became a disciple of his. And that's what Jesus is offering us to say. From the beginning, for all space and time, we were to be here. And we stand, as was said by Paul, on the foundation. Maybe you've been a part of this parish from its beginning in the cafeteria at the school. Maybe you just joined last week. Either way, we all stand on the same foundation, the same sacrifices, people who poured it out for us to be here, and to accept with humility the challenge to be what our community needs, first inside and then out. To hear and to learn as disciple, and then to be sent out as apostle. That's what's so important about this feast. As we think of the mother church, of the first home, of the first Christian space of worship, we are absolutely connected to that. And the Eucharist that we will consume today is the same one that was first broken there 1,700 years ago, as it is the same Eucharist shared with the apostles on the night before Jesus died. And so the mission of the church is the same. Whether it's sunny or dark, whether it's snowing or super warm, we have an opportunity and a challenge. And when you leave here today, I often invite people to come stand underneath this cross, and if you've never done it, I still recommend highly you do it, because there'll be at least a brief second where you go, what if that just fell on me right now? But still, to stand underneath the weight of the cross and see the love of the cross. But I hope as you leave today, I hope you just look back at least one more time at the mischievous Pope, who is the patron of our parish, and see him say to you, you coming with me? Are you going to take what you just consumed and share it with the world? Are you going to be light in darkness? Are you going to be a balm on the wounds of people who feel disconnected or unappreciated or maybe completely unvalued at all? That's what lies in front of us, an opportunity to be faithful to our baptismal call, to our particular charism as a parish here in Perrysburg, and to the rest of the world. Open wide the windows, he said, but not just to let in some air, but also for us to go out and be Christ for others. May God be praised.